What is up, guys? Stark here. I am finally back and I'm doing the character spotlights once again. And if you guys watched my update video, you'll know that there'll be a few changes to how these videos work. The format is basically the same. I'm just gonna go through a character, talk about it, and then tell my thoughts and opinions about the character. But instead of doing it every day or trying to do it every day like I have been, I'm gonna do it once a week, every Sunday. Hopefully, I'm gonna try and do that, which will give me more time to work on the actual content of the videos, and it won't be as stressful for me trying to, fit in a video every single day, especially a video like this where there's a lot of editing and research involved. So hopefully it's gonna be fine, and we'll see how it goes. Things can always change, but for now I'm gonna try and just keep it that way. I also am recording this with a bunch of different software and editing with different stuff as well, so it might take a little while before I get everything perfect again. But let me know in the comments what you guys think, and I definitely like hearing what you guys have to say, and I kind of incorporate that into my videos and stuff. So any kind of feedback is very helpful. Anyway, though, moving on to the spotlight, which I need a new name for, so I'm thinking like a Sunday spotlight is the appropriate title to go with for this. So in the first ever Sunday spotlight, we are going to start with the new 5-star servant that is introduced into the banner, and that is going to be Cleopatra. So as I said, she is a 5-star servant and she is an assassin. So at level 90 she will have 13,402 HP and 11,088 attack, which will rank her 24th overall in HP and 27th overall in attack. So overall she has some very good, very balanced stats. It does rank her near the top of the list. And if you do decide to max her out, she will end up with 15,402 HP and 13,088 attack. As for her additional stats, for her star weight she will have a 98, and for her star gain she will have 25.5%. For her noble Phantasm generation, on the attack she will have 1.06%, and on defense she will have 4%. So now moving on to her skills, Cleopatra is a very self-sufficient servant. She has a lot of skills that greatly benefit her, and because of that she doesn't have to rely too much on support, which is why she's self-sufficient. But anyway, her first skill is the Imperial Privilege A, which will recover her own HP, as well as have a 60% chance to increase her own attack for 3 turns and her own defense for 3 turns. And those are going to be separate effects, so one can trigger and the other one cannot, or they can both trigger, or none of them can trigger. Anyway, Imperial Privilege is pretty common right now, so you guys know pretty much what it can do. It has a 7-turn charge time at level 1, and it'll go down to a 5-turn charge time at level 10. She gets a lot out of this. Imperial Privilege is a very good skill with the nasty drawback of having a percentage-based chance of succeeding. But there's nothing really new here. 40% on attack and defense at max level and 3,000 HP at level 10. Moving on to her second skill is going to be the Golden Rule Wealth and Body B skill. Now this will increase her own noble Phantasm generation rate for 3 turns, as well as charge her own noble Phantasm gauge by 10% every turn for 3 turns, and this will also recover her own HP every turn for 3 turns. So as you guys can see here, you're kind of filling in all of the roles you need for a character to be self-sufficient. She already has the attack and defense boost, now she has a noble Phantasm generation skill, and then her first and second skill also heal her. So she's getting a lot out of all of her skills. She's definitely making the most of it. This one is going to start on 8 turns for charge time, go down to 6 turns, so it's still a pretty good charge time at max level. And you're going to get a 40% increase to her noble Phantasm generation rate at max level, and you're also going to heal 1000 HP every turn for 3 turns at max level. So now her third and final skill is going to be the Protection of the Goddess Sea, which will grant her self-invincibility for 1 turn. This will also remove her own debuffs and then grant her critical stars. So again, this skill, it definitely helps her be self-sufficient. Now this time she gets the invincibility, removes debuffs, and grants stars. So she's getting everything. All of her skills are very good. The one Imperial Privilege has a bit of a drawback, which kind of sucks, but it's Imperial Privilege, so what can you do about that? At max level, you will get 20 stars, and then the charge time for this skill is also going to start at 8 turns and go down to 6. So overall, again, very self-sufficient for this character. So as for skill recommendations, for this character in particular, it's going to be really difficult to decide which you really want to focus on first. I guess it really depends on what team setups you're trying to build for her, or what you're pairing her with. Like if you have Ozzy, I would recommend maxing out Imperial Privilege first, because with Ozzy you're going to be able to get Imperial Privilege to go off all the time. So you definitely want to make the most out of that. If not though, I would probably say to focus on the Golden Rule to get the most out of the Noble Phantasm generation, because you really do want to focus on using her Noble Phantasm. It's an AoE buster, and Assassins really lack that. So you could go ahead and focus on that skill first as far as leveling it up. But all three of these skills are very good. There's really not one clear cut above the other one. It just, again, depends on what type of characters you're going to pair her with. And as for pairing her with characters, I was mentioning him earlier, but Ozzy is a very good character to pair with her. He does have the Protection of the Sun God, which will increase her buff rate, which again makes Imperial Privilege automatically go through. And on top of that, he also does have the added effect where it will also increase the Noble Phantasm gauge of Cleopatra as well. So you're going to get an additional 20% on top of the 30% you're getting for her second skill of Golden Rule, and it's going to be very easy to get her Noble Phantasm off with that combination. In addition to that though, he also has a Charisma skill which will further increase the attack by 18%, stack that on top of her own Imperial Privilege, and you kind of make up for the lack of damage she has as an assassin. And honestly, I think Ozzy is probably one of, if not the best characters to pair with her. Another really good character to pair with her is going to be Drake. So Drake is also a Rider, and again, the Rider class typically has the highest star weights in the game, so they're going to be able to get all of the stars that Cleopatra can generate. But in addition to that, she also has the Voyager of the Storm, which will increase Cleopatra's Noble Phantasm damage, as well as increase her attack for one turn. So it's going to be a really nice combination there. You're also going to have Drake being a AoE buster Noble Phantasm as well. And she has a good buster deck, so you're going to be able to make a lot of buster chains. You can stack your Noble Phantasms on top of each other, because if you're going against multiple enemies, then naturally AoE Noble Phantasms just deal less damage because they're spread out over the course of the entire team. So you could just use Cleopatra's Noble Phantasm and then drop Drake's Noble Phantasm on the same turn, and there's a pretty good chance that you're going to be able to wipe out most of the wave, if not the entire wave, with both of those Noble Phantasms stacked on top of each other. And then finally, another good servant to pair her up with is going to be Waver. So if you have her with either Ozzy or Drake, you could use Waver to use his Discerning Eye on whichever character you're going to have be your crit dealer. And typically with the Riders, they'll get the stars, so you could use this skill on them to increase their critical strength and make better use of those stars. You could also use it on Cleopatra to increase her Noble Phantasm gauge if need be, but ideally you want to use it on whoever is going to be getting the stars the most, because Cleopatra doesn't really need her Noble Phantasm gauge increase that much, and Waver also does have two other skills that will do that for her as well as increasing her attack and her defense. So overall, Waver, again, I talk about Waver every video. He's just one of the best support characters in the game, and he really does pair up really well with Cleopatra, especially if you're going to team her up with Drake or Ozzy. So now we're going to move on and talk about Cleopatra's passives. The first one is going to be the Presence Concealment B, which will increase her critical star generation by 8%, and the second one is Divinity D, which will increase her damage dealt by 130. So now moving on to her Ascension. Her first Ascension is going to require 5 Assassin's pieces and 100,000 Quantum pieces. Her second Ascension is going to require 12 Assassin pieces, 6 Phoenix Feathers, and 300,000 Quantum pieces. Her third Ascension is going to require 5 Assassin Monuments, 6 Lamps, 3 Tears of Blood, and 1 million Quantum pieces. And her final Ascension is going to require 12 Assassin Monuments, 6 Tears of Blood, 10 Serpent Jewels, and 3 million Quantum pieces. As for her skill enhancements, to max her skills out from 1 to 10, you are going to need 17 Gems of Assassin, 17 Magic Gems of Assassin, 17 Secret Gems of Assassin, 9 Lamps, 12 Phoenix Feathers, 24 Shells, 10 Scarabs, 1 Crystallized Lore, and 54,400,000 Quantum pieces. So now moving on to her command card deck, she's going to have 2 quick, 1 arts, and 2 buster. And the hit counts on those are going to be 4 for the quick, 2 for the arts, and 3 for the buster. And then on her extra attack, she's going to have 6 hits. So she's got a pretty good variety of cards, and most of her cards do a pretty solid amount of hits. As for her Noble Phantasm, it's going to be a buster Noble Phantasm, as I've previously stated. And it's going to be an AoE one as well that will deal 5 hits. And it does damage to all enemies, as well as deal 1000 damage to herself. And it will also increase her own buster card performance for 1 turn on the overcharge. So this is a really good Noble Phantasm, especially for her being an assassin. There aren't many assassins out there with buster AoE Noble Phantasms. And it does a pretty good amount of damage as well, and you do get that attack increase to your buster performance before you use the Noble Phantasm on the overcharge. So you're going to be getting a little bit of extra damage for that. The HP decrease really doesn't matter too much for her, because 2 of her skills will just go ahead and heal her right back. So that kind of really doesn't matter too much, so I'm not really factoring that in at all. But overall, it is a very solid Noble Phantasm. It does have an interlude that you can do to power it up, and this will increase the damage it does, and it will also apply Nullify buff 1 time for 3 turns. So that could be very helpful. You just being able to nullify the buffs of the enemies is always going to be very nice. So now moving on to some of her craft essences that you can use. First up is going to be her maximum bond craft essence, which is going to be the Serpent of Fate. And while equipped, this will increase Noble Phantasm strength of all allies by 25%, but it will also decrease the defense of all of those allies by 10% as well. Next up, we have the Black Grail, which will increase Noble Phantasm damage by 60%, and it will also decrease her HP by 500 every turn. So as I talked about with her Noble Phantasm, the HP reduction really doesn't matter because she has so many ways of counteracting that with her skills, and they do last multiple turns, at least her second one does. So the Black Grail losing 500 HP every turn really isn't going to be much of a factor, but getting that increase to your Noble Phantasm damage is definitely going to be more of a bonus than a negative on this skill. Next up, we have Limited Zero Over, which will increase her buster card effectiveness by 25%. This is a pretty standard one, but she primarily does buster damage, so you always want to increase that if you have the ability to do so. And her being a self-sufficient servant really allows you to play around with the craft essences to just focus on her damage. And then finally, we have the current event craft essence, which is going to be Brave Hero Ellie Chan's quest. And this will increase your buster card effectiveness by 10%, as well as increase your Noble Phantasm strength by 20%. So obviously you're getting less for each of the individual effects, but you're getting both of them at the same time. So it could definitely be a really good option to use on this character. So now we're going to move ahead and go on to the, the review portion. Now, obviously you guys noticed that I did things a little bit differently. So I'm not going to just talk about the characters at the review portion like I normally do. I'm just going to talk about them as they make sense in the video. So the review portion is basically just going to be where I give out the stars from now on. And I'll still have the servants on the bottom there so you guys can see what my top servants, are. Anyway, then moving on to her rankings, and for her stats, she's going to get 5 stars. You know, if there was more, she'd probably get more. But she's top 30 in both HP and attack. She's got a very good balanced set of stats, so 5 stars for that. For her skill ranking, I'm giving her 4 stars. Now, she does have a very good set of skills, but Imperial Privilege drags it down a little bit. Now, if you have Ozzy, he, negates that, but as a standalone skill set, you have to factor in that negative effect when you're factoring into the rankings. So I was torn between 4.5 and 4 stars, but ultimately I decided to go with the 4-star ranking. So now for her Noble Phantasm, she's also going to get 4 stars. It's a very good Noble Phantasm. It's an AoE buster Noble Phantasm, which is very rare amongst assassins. So she can definitely find a lot of uses for it. And overall, it's just a very good Noble Phantasm, definitely deserving of those 4 stars. Next up, for her survivability, she's going to get 4.5 stars. She has really high HP. She has 2 skills that will heal her, and then the 3rd skill grants her complete, invincibility. It also does remove any debuffs. So this character is going to be really tough to kill, and definitely deserving of the 4.5 stars. As for versatility, she's going to get 4 stars in this. I've already talked about the usefulness of her Noble Phantasm. She's got a very self-sufficient skill set, and because of that, she can just get thrown into pretty much any team you want, and you don't have to worry about her. You know, she doesn't have too many weaknesses, and like I said, you know, that's what self-sufficient means. She can take care of herself, and you can pretty much throw her into whatever you want as long as you're not going against a negative class for her. So overall, that will give her ranking a 4.3 out of 5. She's a very good character. I actually pulled for her. I got her on the first try, and I was only going to do one because I didn't actually mention this in the video yet, I don't think, but I'm a huge fan of the game series Danganronpa, and the artist drew the art for Cleopatra, so I definitely wanted to get her because of that, and pretty much only because of that. But she is a pretty good servant, and I needed a 5-star assassin, so I'll definitely be leveling her up pretty quickly, and hopefully I can make the most out of her. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. There wasn't too many changes to this video. Like I said, it's not really going to change too much. It's just going to have a few minor tweaks here and there. But yeah, I'm back, so expect these videos weekly on Sundays. Hopefully every Sunday for the foreseeable future, at least until I catch up again, because once I catch up, it's really hard to make spotlights on characters that aren't out yet. But yeah, guys, I'm going to leave you with Cleopatra's Noble Phantasm, and I will see you guys next time.
祖はエジプトの落語終焉を示す時の蛇。最後のファラオとして命じます。村へ移る。